Oh my god, I'm sold. Hello and welcome back to BookTube with Simon and Amy. This is going to be my end of June wrap up. Is it June? Yes, end of June wrap up. So, I'll be honest with you, right? I've not done a lot of reading at the end of June, which is a wee bit cheeky, but got a Nintendo Switch and I'm just addicted to Animal Crossing, and it's just all I've done with my time is pretty much play Animal Crossing, so I only have 3 books to talk about. So we might actually have a wrap up that is no like an hour long, which was the whole point of splitting it into doing 2 wrap ups. So maybe this is just a great thing, really, in disguise. So the first book that I want to talk about is a NetGalley arc that I received, and that is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, and this is going to be coming out on the 13th of July 2021 this year. So I was really excited when I got this because I have a couple of Grady Hendrix books in real life and on my wish list, but I have never actually read a Grady Hendrix yet, and I had been saving my best friend's Exorcism for May, for my birthday month, because I knew that Simon was doing like this big 80s horror themed birthday thing for me, and so I was like, that's like the perfect book to be reading because it's supposed to be definitely giving off those old school horror vibes. And then because I moved house, it was in a box, so I didn't read it for my birthday. But I was sort of, I knew I had that coming up, so I've been craving a wee horror hit. So when this had came up, I was like, I need that in my life. And thank goodness I got it. It was divine. So we've got our main character, and the premise is that she is a final girl and she goes to a therapy group with other final girls. And in case no one is familiar with the concept of a final girl, they are the final girl who is left over when a serial killer has killed everyone else, and they survive, usually by killing the person trying to kill them. And so she and her group of 6 friends all form a wee support group basically, and they have the same therapist, and she's spent her entire career trying to help them be reintegrated back into society and work through their obvious trauma from everything that happened to them. And they just sort of all enjoy each other's company, and the fact that it's easier to be around people who have also experienced what they are going through themselves. It means that they don't need to explain as much, so everybody just sort of knows how they are feeling. But then what happens is the final girls start getting killed off. I mean, it was a ride. So the book is definitely 80s slasher vibes. That is the only way to describe it. So if you love Halloween, if you love like Friday the 13th, if you love Freddy Krueger, you're going to adore this book, because Grady Hendrix does not try to hide the fact that all these films are his inspiration, and all the girls in the book, you get all their backstories as well, and their backstories are exactly those horror movie dynamics. Basically, he has put in exactly what happens in the film, but he's changed the names, which is just brilliant, and I actually really appreciated that, as opposed to trying to make up backstories fair fresh. I really liked that he was given the nostalgia of these older horror films, and it felt like you came in and there's so much hype around the final girls and they are so well known in society, so you come into the novel into this headspace where it's like you almost sort of know them because you know their stories so well because you've seen all these films. And I just thought that was so clever. It's almost a bit meta, because you know all these lassie stories but you don't really know the girls, and that's exactly what the girls are facing in the book, and you're reading about it and you're like, oh my god. So I just thought that was like ridiculously clever. I loved it, and I am a total wee horror geek, so I was like geeking the hell out. It was fantastic. But there are so many twists and turns, just like a cracking horror movie, and you have to suspend belief a wee bit. There are times where you're like, I know that this wouldn't happen. Like, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, so I'm not going to talk about the specific bits because I'm so bad for that, and everybody should read this if they love horror, so I don't want to give away. But there are bits where you're like, oh come on, like that would never happen. Like, you are obviously dead, or you're obviously no dead, or like anything. You're just like, that wouldn't happen. I know that wouldn't happen. And when I was reading the book, it was annoying me a wee bit because I was like, oh come on, like as if, and it was sort of winding me up. But then I was like, hold on a wee minute, like if this was a horror film, like I would be like, oh, aye, very good, come on. But that's what happens to push the plot of a horror film, especially your older ones. So then I was like, oh no, I quite like it. Like, I think that this is quite a really clever idea. So I think that if you are willing to suspend belief a wee bit, if you're into your 80s horror films, then you should definitely read this book because it was bloody brilliant. And the narrator, your main character, is a bit unreliable, which I really, really like. All the side characters, including the girls and some police officers and other people in their lives who come into it, are just really interesting because you're like, do I trust you? Do I not trust you? And everything's so twisty-turny that you never really know who to trust. And so Grady Hendrix does an absolutely brilliant job of putting you in the main character's position, because you as a reader don't know who to trust, and like you can't even trust your narrator. So I thought that it was written really well in that regard, and the fact that he pulls in so many amazing horror references was just, oh, chef's kiss good. It was brilliant. The only thing that I feel could have helped it a wee bit, just a wee bit, is some of the character development, especially with our main character. I think that he does a great job with some of the other girls, because you're seeing things from your main character's perspective, and so you're seeing these other characters develop and grow, and I feel like we didn't get as much of that development and growth for our main character. So I think for it to have been a 5-star, I would have liked to have seen that. However, it was a very high 4-star for me. I thought that the book was phenomenal, and like I say, like, please buy it. Like, if you like horror, buy it, because it is just a ride. It was just so fucking fun. The next book that I read on NetGalley was The Lost Storyteller by Amanda Block, and that comes out on the 8th of July 2021. So I've quite mixed feelings on this book. I DNF'd it, so I obviously didn't love it. But here's the thing, I think other people might love it. So the concept is so interesting. So there's our main character, her dad goes missing when she's very, very little, and her mum is like, we will not mention him, he is scum. So she grows up basically not really knowing anything about her dad, and being quite content and happy in her life, not having her dad around. She's never really thought about him that much. She's never wanted to find him or like ask questions about him really, and she's quite happy with how things are. But her dad was a children's entertainer, a really popular children's entertainer, so there are articles that pop up every so often about him, and one reporter actually reaches out to her and tries to talk to her about her dad. She's like, I'm not interested, back off. Reporter turns up at her place of work, so she's like, well, I sort of need to talk to you now. And the reporter actually piques her interest because she never watched her dad's show, so she doesn't really know what it's about. And the reporter sort of makes connections between his show and what could have potentially happened to him in real life. So she's like, maybe I do want to know a wee bit more about this. She chats to her gran about it, and her gran gives her a book, and it is a book of 7 fairy tales that her dad written and asked to be gifted to her. And because she was never interested in her dad, her gran never gave it to her until now, and she's like in her 30s, so she's like, I'm like not going to do anything with this book of fairy tales. I'm a grown ass woman. I'm not going to be sitting reading fairy tales. Triggered, alright. But she does, she decides to read them, and then it turns out that the fairy tales could be connected to what actually happened to her dad. So that sounds like so super interesting to me. So I was really excited when I got this arc to check it out, but it just wasn't for me. So I DNF'd it at about 100 pages in because it is just so long-winded. It just took so long to actually get to a point where it could be interesting, but that is just because I don't appreciate really descriptive, flowery writing, and that is very much what this book is. So I think that if you enjoy that, like if you enjoy every single person being described in detail and every single chair being described in detail and it's sounding beautiful, then you might like it. But we know me, and I just want you to get to the fucking point. So it just wasn't for me. I can't even tell you any more about the book, to be honest, because like I say, I DNF'd at 100 pages, so I didn't know what happens, didn't know how it all pans out, and ken what, I'm fine with living my life no knowing. Like, I'm just not interested enough to continue to read it. It was just no my writing style at all. And I've learned recently as well, like I think I really love first person novels. I never noticed really that I had a preference in writing styles until recently, and I do think that I much prefer first person to third person, and this was written in third person, so automatically that puts me on the back foot a wee bit. So I'm happy to continue with a book as long as it's gripping me still if it's in third person, but this just wasn't. It was too flowery. I didn't feel like it flowed great, and I felt like if you're going to have a book where there are fairy tales included, then like the fairy tales are your place to do like your flowery, beautiful, ethereal language, and that would have fit better for me. But the fairy tales didn't feel particularly magical because the rest of the writing was this, you know, really flowery, evocative language that the fairy tales then didn't stand out, and I felt like that was a bit of a miss. So if the book was maybe just a wee bit more standard and then all the beautiful language was used in the fairy tales, it could have made them feel really magical and really special, and that was just a bit of a miss for me. So I mean, read it if you want. Now, be prepared to be super proud of me, right? Because I'm super proud of myself. So at the beginning of the year, I set out quite an extensive TBR. It was like seriously ambitious, and have I stuck to it? Have a fuck. I've read so many other random books that were not on that TBR, but to be fair, like I have read quite a lot that was on the TBR, but the bit of the TBR that I was really making an effort to focus on was the series that I either wanted to finish or continue in this year. So I really wanted to finish the Throne of Glass series, which I did, so yes. I really wanted to continue, well, I wanted to start the Raven Boys series, and then I just finished it, so because they were amazing. And then I wanted to continue the Shatter Me series, which I did. I read the next book in that series, and I think I will probably continue that into next year as well. And then the other series that I wanted to continue was the Invisible Library series, and I just finished the next one in the series. So my TBR series that I wanted to finish / continue is coming to a close. I do have the next one in the Invisible Library series to read. I don't know if I'll read that this year or if I'll just leave that over to next year. It depends on how I'm feeling. But I basically just wanted to read the next one in the series this year. And I've done it, so I'm absolutely buzzing with myself, because I'm awful for starting a series and then forgetting about it forever and starting 57 new series. So I'm pleased. So next I read The Masked City by Genevieve Koogman. So this is the second book in the Invisible Library series, and I didn't review the first Invisible Library book. I read that pre-BookTube, but it's brilliant, so I'll just do a quick overview. Basically, we have Irene. She's our main character, and she works for an organisation called the Library, and they travel through time and go into other dimensions and basically steal literature that could be troublesome and take it back to the library for safekeeping. And in all these other dimensions, there are different mystical, magical things happening. So in some dimensions there are dragons, in some dimensions there are fae, and some dimensions they are in the early 1900s and it's all steampunky and cool, and in other dimensions they are filled with chaos and can't be inhabited by humans, and all the literature that they go in to steal are maybe pieces of work that mention other dimensions, and they're like, well, if this dimension finds out about that dimension, it's going to be a bit of a war and we can't have that, so we need to steal this back. Or it's just works of literature that could be a wee bit troublesome, and so they steal that and they take that back to the library, and their job is basically to protect all these other dimensions from anything that could cause the people in them harm, and basically to be like the record keepers for all these other dimensions. So they want the library to have a record date, obviously all these great works that's happening, anything that could be troublesome, and they want to keep it in the library so that it is safe and out of the hands of anybody who could use it negatively. Irene gets a new recruit, Kai, and in the first book they go to old-timey London and they meet fairies and all sorts, and it's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. The magic system's really cool and interesting, so they have the power to influence things using their words, because obviously they're librarians, so words are magic and powerful. Awesome. And it's just really cool. They need to be really specific, like you couldn't just say like, Simon, make me a cup of tea. Like, you'd need to be like, Simon, pick up this cup, put in a tea bag, boil the kettle, blah blah blah. So it's really cool because there's a lot of stuff that their magic can't actually influence, which I think makes it feel a wee bit more realistic, because it's not just like, oh well, they're going to say something and then their magic is going to save the day, because I feel like that's a wee bit of an issue for me when it comes to some fantasy books, especially YA, because it almost feels like there is no that level of suspense, because you know that they're going to be fine. And because the magic system in this book is so, I was going to say flawed, but no flawed, I guess it has its limits. So because it is limited, you know that the magic isn't going to get them out of every single situation, and when they go into other dimensions as well, depending on what is going on in that other dimension, in the other world, in the other time, their magic could be even more limited and could affect even less, or it could affect more. So it changes with every new environment that they go into, which I just think is so cool and so interesting, because it's like you're learning about all these different places and then how that works in correlation to the magic system that you already know. So like, sorry, I'm geeking out here because I really love a good magic system, and I really love the magic system in these books. So something that I really enjoyed in the first book was Kai and Irene's relationship. So Irene is such a stickler for the rules. Like, she will no bend a rule. She is like, no, this is the way it's done and this is the way I'll do it. And because Kai is supposed to be learning for her, she almost feels this secondary pressure of teaching this young librarian. So she is like, we will not deviate from any path, like these are the rules, this is how we're doing it, we're playing it by the straight and narrow. And Kai is a wee bit of a risk taker, he's a wee bit of a rebel, so he's like, well, like if we were to do it this way, and she'd be like, no, rein it in, son. Like, they just have a really cool dynamic. They have some absolutely top-notch banter between the two of them, wee bit flirty, which we like, but the story doesn't focus on their relationship, which we know drives me mental. So I really love their relationship and I love their dynamic. And Kai has tried to put the moves on her a couple of times and she's like, no, like absolutely not. I'm here to train you, like I'm not going to take advantage of my position. It's not happening. And then in the second book, spoilers, so Kai gets kidnapped. So we didn't have a lot of their banter and we didn't have a lot of their dynamic in this book, so it rated a wee bit lower for me than the Invisible Library did, and that's why. I really enjoyed the book and I really enjoyed going back to this other world. And I really enjoyed the fact that we got to learn more about Kai and more about Kai's family because, well, I've already spoiled the fact he's gone missing, so maybe I'll just spoil this too. If you're going to read these, right, don't watch this bit of the video. But Kai's a dragon. Fucking cool, right? Like, so cool. And you find that out in the first book, but you don't really learn a lot about the dragons, and you learn so much about the dragons in this book, and you learn about their magic and a wee bit of their history and heritage, which was brilliant, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. What I didn't enjoy so much in this book is Irene pairs up with Silver, who is like one of the head guys in the Fae that you meet in book 1, and Silver again is like very flirty, like he's your typical Fae male, and you know, thinks he's the shit, and he is like all powerful, he's amazing, everybody should kneel at his feet. It's just a bit dull to me, but I do like Silver as a character when he isn't trying to seduce Irene. Irene is getting all the lads, by the way, but I really like Silver when he's not trying to seduce Irene and when he is just there like to move the plot forward. I really enjoy that. I think he's a cracking character when he's not being creepy to Irene. So I just didn't enjoy this one as much because we didn't have as much of the Kai Irene dynamic, and we had a lot more of the Silver Irene dynamic, and I much prefer Kai and Irene, but I reckon it'll pick up in the third book. And I think that the way the author did it with Kai going missing as we were learning all about the dragons in this other universe and all about Kai and Kai's family as Irene was learning it. So I do think it was really good because it wasn't just like an info dump. There was actual like her having to find things out and meeting other people in this other world and trying to get Kai back. So I think it was really done well, and I think that it was interesting. I just feel like instead of that being an installment of the series on its own, could have been like the first half of a book potentially. I just felt like it was quite drawn out. I feel like it could have all been resolved a bit quicker than it was, and it went on too long, to be honest, before Kai was rescued and before him and Irene were back together. I feel like it could have been a really strong first half of a book, and then they get sent on another mission and this happens, or something like that. I didn't feel like it needed to be a book in its own. It was a wee bit of a miss for me, and I rated Mass City 3 stars. In comparison, I rated The Invisible Library 5 stars, so there was a definite drop for me, but I have the third one and I am hoping the third one picks up because I am really geeky about the books. Like I thoroughly enjoyed them. I read the first one and I was like, right, everybody I know who likes YA needs to read this, so I made my granny read it. Her eyesight is away, so it was really difficult for her to read a book now. She has her Kindle on like the biggest size and every word is like this big, but me and my gran read really similar books. She read all the True Blood books, loved them, all the Mortal Instruments books, loved them, so really similar reading tastes, me and her Betty. So I was like, Gran, you need to read this book. So she loved them. She read the first one or the space of like 2 days. She sat up all night reading it. She was hooked, and she's ahead of me on the series. Like, she has read every book in the series that is out. I think it's like up to the 7th, and she's like, you need to catch up because I need to talk to you about it. And I bought it for Simon's mum as well. I was like, you're going to love this, so you need to read it. You need to like find out what's happening, so that I had people to talk to about it. And now I'm behind where Betty is, so I'll need to catch up. But I think the third one will pick up. I'll probably get round to it. See, I was already saying in the beginning, like, I don't know if it'll be this year or if I don't know it'll be next year, but I already feel myself like hankering for the next year now because I've got really excited talking about The Invisible Library again and how much I loved it. So I might read the third one shortly, and then if I really enjoy the third one, if it picks back up when Irene and Kai are back together and it focuses more on that really cool magic system, I'll definitely continue the series. And I think that if I read the third one and it sort of feels similar to this one, then I'll maybe just leave it there. But that is it. That is all I've read, because like I say, Animal Crossing has robbed Simon of a wife, robbed the dog of a mother, and I have just been like, for days, and I love it. So So that's it from me this month, and I will see you shortly with another wrap up. Hopefully I'll have put my Nintendo Switch down and actually read some. Bye.